Did you know that every year people just like you, good, trusting people, lose billions of dollars to con artists? Over $1 billion of that is taken from folks over 60. Now you might think the person on the other end of that phone call is just greedy, desperate maybe. But I'm here to tell you something that the agents at the FBI AS Behavioral Analysis Unit have known for decades. The person who smiles while they drain your life savings often shares the exact same psychological wiring as a serial killer. The only difference is their choice of weapon. I'm Arthur Hayes. For 30 years, my job was sitting across a cold, metal table from these people, looking into their eyes and separating the truth from the performance. They are masters of deception. They can fool lie detectors, they can fool juries, and they can most certainly fool you. But they have tells. They have patterns. They operate from a playbook that, once you learn to read it, is as clear as day. Today, I'm not just going to tell you about that playbook. You're going to learn to use it. You are going to step into the profiler's shoes. Throughout this video, I'll present you with the same kinds of evidence, the same interview footage, and the same behavioral puzzles that an FBI agent would face. Your job is to spot the signs before I point them out. These are the same methods, the same frameworks that are used to hunt the most dangerous predators on the planet. I once interrogated a man named Marcus. He'd orchestrated a Ponzi scheme that wiped out the retirement funds of over 200 families. In the interrogation room, he cried. He spoke of his own family, his fears, his regrets. The junior detectives were ready to offer him a cup of tea and a tissue, but his tears were perfect. Too perfect. There was no blotchiness in his face, no tremor in his voice, just crystal-clear tears rolling down his cheeks on command. It was a performance. He wasn't feeling sadness, he was demonstrating what he thought sadness should look like. That's the difference we're looking for. It's the gap between what a person projects and who they truly are. Are you ready to see past the mask? Before we dive into our first case study, you need to understand the architecture of the investigation. The FBI doesn't just rely on gut feelings, they use a 5-step process that builds a case brick by brick, removing guesswork and replacing it with methodical analysis. It's called the behavioral analysis process. First is observation. You collect raw data without judgment. What did they say? What did they do? How did they react? Second is analysis. You organize the information. Do you see any patterns, contradictions? Things that just don't add up? Third is interpretation. This is where you form a hypothesis. Based on the patterns, what kind of person might be responsible? Fourth is prediction. Based on your interpretation, what is this person likely to do next? Where might they hide? Who might they target? And fifth, the most important step, verification. You test your theory against new evidence. You never, ever fall in love with your first idea. You constantly challenge it. This process is your shield against being manipulated. Now, let's clarify a common point of confusion: psychopathy versus sociopathy. Hollywood uses the terms interchangeably, but in my line of work, the distinction is critical. Think of it this way. A psychopath is a predator born. A sociopath is a predator made. The psychopath has a brain that is fundamentally different. The parts responsible for empathy and fear are turned down, like a radio with low volume. They are a wolf born in a sheep's clothing factory. The disguise is nearly perfect from birth. A sociopath, on the other hand, is more like a junkyard dog. They might have had the capacity for empathy once, but life, abuse, neglect, trauma has beaten it out of them. They're erratic, often unable to hold down a job or maintain the kind of pristine mask a true psychopath wears. The FBI is often more concerned with the psychopath because they are harder to spot. They're the charming CEO, the trusted doctor, the friendly neighbor. They hide in plain sight. To help agents spot them, experts developed a tool. It's called the PCLR, or the Psychopathy Checklist Revised. It's a list of 20 traits that measure the core of this disorder. This checklist is one of the most powerful and dangerous tools in psychology. In our first interactive test, you'll get to use a simplified version of it. The challenge is set. Are you ready to make your first observation? All right, it's time for your first test. In a moment, you're going to see a short clip of an interview. It's an actor, but he's been coached based on real-life interrogation footage of a diagnosed psychopath. Now, before you watch, I need you to clear your mind. Forget everything you've seen in the movies. You are not looking for a man with a twitching eye, a maniacal laugh, or a hockey mask. The real monster, the one who walks among us, is far more subtle. You're looking for what isn't there. You're looking for the performance. I want you to focus on 3 specific traits from the FBI's checklist. First, superficial charm. This isn't genuine warmth. It's a smooth, engaging, but ultimately hollow charisma. It's like a cheap suit. Looks good from a distance, but up close you can see the poor stitching. It doesn't quite fit the person wearing it. Second, grandiose self-worth. Listen for an inflated sense of their own importance. They see themselves as the hero of every story, smarter, more capable, and more entitled than anyone else. They don't just think they're better than you, they're genuinely baffled that you haven't realized it yet. Third, pathological lying. This is not just telling lies to get out of trouble. This is lying for the sake of lying. They lie when the truth would be easier. It's a form of power, of seeing what they can get away with. Simulate video clip playing for 45 seconds. An actor playing a suspect in a fraud case is calmly and charmingly explaining his side of the story, smiling at the interviewer, making jokes, and presenting himself as a misunderstood visionary. Okay, pause the video. Let's analyze. What did you see? Did you feel yourself being drawn in by his charm? Did you catch the subtle ways he positioned himself as a victim, a genius betrayed by lesser minds? Did you notice any specific statements that felt just a little too smooth, too rehearsed? Go ahead and comment with what you spotted. Now, let's look at this through the eyes of a profiler. The first thing an agent would notice is the lack of emotional congruity. He's discussing a serious accusation that could lead to prison time, but he's smiling, relaxed, almost enjoying the spotlight. A normal person would show signs of stress, a slight tremor, a faster blink rate, a quaver in the voice. He shows none. His charm isn't a personality trait, it's a tool, like a crowbar he's using to try and pry open your trust. He refers to the people who lost money as investors who didn't understand the market, not as victims. This is a classic reframing technique, shifting blame and showcasing his grandiose sense of superiority. He's not just telling a story, he's selling a reality where he is infallible. How did you do? Did you feel the performance? Good. Whether you spotted the signs or not, you're learning to look past the surface. That's the first step. Now, let's break down the diagnostic tool I mentioned, the PCLR. Thinking you can spot a psychopath based on 1 or 2 traits is like thinking you can diagnose a heart attack because someone's arm hurts. You need to see the whole pattern. The 20 traits on the checklist are grouped into 4 key clusters, like 4 pillars holding up a very dark building. The first is the interpersonal cluster. This is about how they present themselves to the world. It includes that superficial charm and grandiose self-worth we just discussed, along with pathological lying and a chilling talent for manipulation. These are the tools they use to draw you in. I once dealt with a woman, let's call her Margaret, who could convince anyone of anything. She'd manipulated her elderly neighbor into signing over his house to her. When we interviewed the neighbor, he still described her as the kindest person you'd ever meet. That's the power of this cluster. It's the attractive mask the monster wears. The second is the affective cluster. This is the most terrifying part. This is about what they don't feel. It includes a lack of remorse or guilt, shallow emotions, a lack of empathy, and a failure to accept responsibility for their own actions. Their emotional world is like a desert. They understand the words for love, sadness, and fear, but they don't feel the music behind them. I remember a suspect who, after confessing to a brutal murder, asked if he would still be able to watch the big game on TV that weekend. There was no remorse, No horror, just a checklist of his own needs. Have you ever known someone who apologizes, but you can tell they don't mean it? Who talks about a tragedy with a strange, detached curiosity? That is a window into the affective deficit. The third is the lifestyle cluster. This describes how they move through the world. It's marked by a need for stimulation, a parasitic lifestyle, impulsivity, irresponsibility, and a lack of realistic, long-term goals. They are easily bored. They live off others. They chase thrills without a thought for the consequences. It's the con man who lives in luxury one month and is homeless the next. It's the employee who is brilliant and charming but can't show up to work on time. They live in the moment, because for them, the future is an abstract concept they don't care about. The fourth is the antisocial cluster. This is where the behavior breaks out into open conflict with society. Poor behavioral controls, early behavior problems, and criminal versatility. This is the actions part of the equation. While many high-functioning psychopaths, the CEOs and surgeons, learn to control their worst impulses, this cluster reveals the raw, untamed nature of the disorder. It's the sudden, inexplicable flashes of rage over a minor slight. It's the history of juvenile delinquency. It is the inability to follow rules because they genuinely believe the rules don't apply to them. Now, grab a piece of paper. You don't have to share this. Think of someone, a public figure, a character from a movie, or maybe someone you've known. How many of these boxes do they tick? Remember, this is an educational exercise, not a clinical diagnosis, but it's a powerful way to see the pattern. You've learned the framework, you've analyzed a subject. Now we're moving from the interview room to the crime scene. Every crime scene is a story, written by the offender. A profiler's job is to read that story and understand its author. For this test, I'm going to give you a summary of a crime scene. Your task is to determine if the details point toward a planned, controlled crime typical of a psychopath, or a chaotic, emotional crime typical of someone with a different kind of disorder. Here is the scene. A victim is found in their home. There are no signs of forced entry. The victim was subdued with a single, precise blow to the head. The cause of death was a single, deep stab wound. There is very little blood, suggesting the offender took steps to control the scene. The murder weapon is missing. The victim's wallet and jewelry are also gone, but expensive electronics and art have been left untouched. The body has been moved after death and placed deliberately on the bed, almost as if it were staged. There are no fingerprints, no footprints, no foreign DNA. The scene is cold, quiet, and unnervingly clean. Based on these details, would an FBI profiler suspect the offender is a psychopath? Or is this more likely a crime of passion or a simple robbery gone wrong? Take a moment to think. What does the evidence tell you? All right, let's break it down. An agent would immediately classify this as an organized crime scene. This is the calling card of a psychopathic offender. Why? First, the lack of forced entry suggests the victim knew their attacker and let them in. The psychopath uses manipulation and charm to get close. Second, the single, precise blow and wound indicate control and efficiency, not wild, emotional rage. A crime of passion is messy. Multiple wounds, disarray, evidence everywhere. This is surgical. Third, the specific nature of the theft, wallet and jewelry, items of personal value, suggests a trophy was taken. The offender is not just stealing for monetary value, they're taking a souvenir to relive their sense of power. Fourth, and most importantly, is the cleanup, the lack of evidence, the staging of the body. This points to a methodical, calm offender who is not panicked. They are enjoying their work. They are a predator who has made a clean kill and covered their tracks. A disorganized offender, acting out of rage or impulse, would leave a chaotic scene behind. They are driven by emotion. The organized psychopath is driven by a need for power and control. The absence of evidence here is the most damning evidence of all. It tells the story of a careful, confident, and dangerously detached mind. How did your analysis compare? The crime scene gives you the what. The interview gives you the who. For an interrogator, sitting across from a potential psychopath is the ultimate chess match. They are gifted liars, and a standard interrogation can be useless. So, we have to use more advanced techniques designed to bypass their performance and expose the machinery working underneath. One of the most effective tools is testing for behavioral consistency. A person telling the truth is recalling a memory. A person telling a lie is recalling a script. A script is rigid. A memory is flexible. I'll ask a suspect to tell me their story. Then, an hour later, I'll ask them to tell it to me again, but this time, starting from the end and working backward. A normal person will struggle with the chronology, but the core details of their memory will remain the same. A liar, especially a psychopathic one who has meticulously rehearsed their story, will often tell it backward with unnatural precision. Or their script will shatter under the strain, and huge inconsistencies will appear. Next, we watch for micro-expressions. These are fleeting, involuntary facial expressions that last for a fraction of a second and reveal a person's true emotion. A psychopath works hard to project an image of calm or sadness, but if you challenge their grandiosity or poke a hole in their story, you might see a flash of pure contempt, a slight curl of one side of the upper lip. It's there and gone in an instant, but it's a leak from the emotional sewer behind the mask. It tells you their real feeling is disgust and superiority. There are companies that train agents using slow-motion video just to teach them to spot these tells. Then there is language analysis. Psychopaths use language in a peculiar way. They often use the passive voice to describe violent or transgressive acts. It's not "I stabbed him," it's "the knife went in." They are subconsciously distancing themselves from the action. They also use fewer words related to emotional connection, family, friends, love, and more words related to basic needs, money, food, sex. I once interviewed a man suspected of killing his business partner. I asked him to describe their relationship. He talked for 10 minutes about deals they made and money they earned. He never once used the word friend. His language revealed a world of transactions, not relationships. Finally, we listen for vocal stress. Not just what they say, but how they say it. Their speech can be too smooth, too polished when telling their story. It sounds rehearsed because it is. When a normal person is trying to recall a stressful event, their voice will have natural variations in pitch and cadence. The psychopath's story can sound like they're reading a press release. The emotional tone doesn't match the content. It's another sign that you're watching a play, not a real person. You've sat in the profiler's chair and the interrogator's seat. Now, for the final and most difficult test, the real world. This is where the lines get blurry. In society, many psychopathic traits, charm, confidence, ruthlessness, a lack of fear, are often mistaken for leadership qualities. It's crucial to distinguish between a truly dangerous individual and someone who is simply unpleasant. Let's run through 3 common scenarios. Scenario 1. The workplace. Your boss consistently takes credit for your work. He lies effortlessly to clients and his own superiors. He never apologizes, and when a project fails, it is always, without exception, someone else's fault. He can be incredibly charming when he wants something, but you've seen him turn cold and dismissive in an instant. Is he a psychopath or just a jerk? My assessment, he's probably not a clinical psychopath, but he is almost certainly what we call a subclinical or corporate psychopath. He has enough of the traits, lack of empathy, manipulativeness, grandiose self-worth, to be toxic and destructive, but enough self-control to avoid overt criminal behavior. The key here isn't to diagnose him, it's to protect yourself. The behavior is the threat. Document everything. Communicate in writing. Do not get drawn into emotional arguments. Treat him like a force of nature, like a hurricane. You don't reason with it, you build a shelter and stay out of its path. Scenario 2. Dating. You meet someone new. The connection is electric. They mirror your interests perfectly. They love the same obscure movies, the same music, the same books. They shower you with attention and compliments. It feels too good to be true. But when you try to get to know them on a deeper level, their stories are vague. They talk about emotions but don't seem to express them genuinely. When you're upset, they say all the right things, but it feels like they're reading from a script. Red flag or romantic fantasy. This is a massive red flag. This behavior is called love bombing, and it's a classic psychopathic manipulation tactic. They aren't falling in love with you, they are studying you. They become a perfect mirror to gain your trust and control. The moment you are no longer useful or entertaining, that mirror will shatter and the person you thought you knew will vanish, leaving a cold, empty stranger behind. Have you ever experienced a connection that felt too perfect, too fast? Scenario 3. Family. You have a relative who is the master of guilt trips. They constantly create drama to be the center of attention. They manipulate family members against each other for personal gain. They borrow money with no intention of paying it back and see themselves as the victim when confronted. Psychopath or just difficult. This one is tricky. While these are strong narcissistic traits, they also overlap with the psychopathic checklist, particularly the parasitic lifestyle and manipulation. Again, the label is less important than the pattern. The FBI's approach would be to assess the damage. Is this behavior causing severe financial or psychological harm to the family? If so, you must establish firm boundaries. Recognize that their version of reality is built to serve their needs, and you do not have to live in it. It's not your job to fix them. It's your job to protect yourself and your loved ones from the fallout. We've come to the end of our investigation. You've learned the FBI's 5-step process, you've analyzed behavior, a crime scene, and real-world scenarios. But we must end with the most critical step of all, verification. A good profiler never works off a single data point. They never jump to a conclusion. 1 clue is an anomaly. 2 is a coincidence. 3 is a pattern. But a professional conclusion is only reached after building a complete mosaic from multiple sources: interviews, history, behavioral analysis, and physical evidence. The PCLR checklist is a powerful tool, but in the hands of an amateur, it can become a weapon. The world is full of people who are arrogant, selfish, or irresponsible. That doesn't make them psychopaths. True psychopathy is a rare and profound disorder of character, a fundamental lack of the things that make us human. To label someone a psychopath without a rigorous professional diagnosis is a profound act of arrogance. So, how did you do? Did you spot the signs before I revealed them? Were you surprised by how subtle the tells can be? The goal today wasn't to make you paranoid. It was to make you observant. It was to give you the tools to see past the masks that people wear, to trust that feeling in your gut when something seems too good to be true, and to understand the patterns that define manipulative and predatory behavior. You don't need to be afraid. You just need to be aware. Fear is what they use against you. Knowledge is your shield. Use it to protect yourself, your finances, and your peace of mind. The world is a complicated place, but it's a lot less scary when you know what you're looking at. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts in the comments. Which part of this analysis surprised you the most?